call me what you want, open invitation. I'm a human being infused with creative vibration, utilizing melodies and visual stimulation. Beats and stories get the glory, you get the relation. I get impatient like a doctor racing. Bullets coming from my soul, my body just a casing.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Paralyzed Artist Podcast. My name's Daniel Brian Alvarez, and today we in the homie studio. We got Channing in the building.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a podcaster, comedian, F1 enthusiast.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Writer. That's about it, I guess.
Hey, well, welcome to my show in your studio.
Thanks for having me. I don't think this is the first time I've been a guest on somebody else's show here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You never, really? No one's ever been like, let me have you on mine.
No.
I'm like, that's perfect, bro. Like, it works out perfect. I could just record yours after, or mine after yours, you know?
Hell yeah. It's going to cost you $50.
He rents his studio. Yeah, so I know you from the comedy scene.
Yes, sir.
So I usually, when I have comics, and I kind of like get into how they got into doing their thing. So how did you get into the comedy scene?
I first started doing comedy. I had moved to Los Angeles. Like, I'm from LA County. I'm from Lancaster, which is like the very edge of the county. I first moved to the city because I got a job working in post-production. This chick I was dating at the time, her aunt worked for a post-production company, got me a job there. Basically, like, not the mailroom, but like something similar. It was in shipping. And so I moved out here, and then around that time, since I was living here, that girl I was dating, she bought me classes at the Groundlings to do improv. You know the Groundlings?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, you should do it. She thought I was funny. So she was like, you should go do this. And I was like, fuck no. I'll never, that's so gay. Like, I'm not going to go get on stage and do silly make-em-ups. And then I got really interested in it. Like, I found out like all these comedians and actors that I liked, all came from the Groundlings, and I was like, that's cool. I didn't know that there was like a breeding ground for that type of shit. I didn't know. I had no clue about it. So I did it, and then I fell in love with just doing comedy, and so I wanted to start making like sketch videos and shit. Like, one thing leads to another. You know, you go to those places, those schools or whatever, you just get involved in comedy in another way, in any way, and you start finding out from other people who are doing it, all these different avenues of shit. So I started doing improv. Then I started doing a lot of sketch and kind of making really stupid, shitty videos with my roommate, and I had gotten him into that as well. And then from there, I met people who were doing stand-up, and I eventually started doing stand-up.
Did you watch stand-up or like that type of stuff when you were growing up?
I did, but not when I was younger, not until I was like in my 20s. Yeah, I remember watching like a lot of Aziz. That's when I started knowing guys like by their name. You know, I watched like some Pablo Francisco too, like because his clips were really popular. Yeah, like all his Comedy Central clips.
Yeah.
But I would never really sit down and watch stand up too much. If it was really popular, we listened to the Blue Collar Comedy album.
Oh yeah.
Or the Kings of Comedy. Remember that DVD that came out? Yeah. But like, it wasn't really pushed in my family. Like, entertainment wasn't really pushed on us in my family. Like, my parents didn't influence us with like music or movies. I was always like a TV kid because I would sit in front of the TV all day.
Yeah.
So I knew I loved comedy, but it came from a place of television. Like, I was obsessed with Trey Parker and Matt Stone when I was little. So like South Park and that type of shit had a big influence on me. So when I found out about the Groundlings and how people could like do that as a job, I didn't know that you could train for it and get better. And you know, so once that transition into like stand up, I didn't know that you could start going to like mics. And perfecting it as a craft. Like, I just didn't know that was like
a thing.
But so yeah, I met people who were doing stand up through the improv and sketch community, and I started doing that. But I was really 1 foot in, 1 foot out for a long time.
For like years.
A couple years. Like, I was doing an open mic or two every couple weeks. I would get a show here and there, you know, like at Flappers or some bullshit or wherever, you know. And it wasn't until I stopped doing sketch and improv which was mid to late 2018, that I would say late 2018, that I fully dove into stand-up and was doing it regularly. And that's when I feel like it's like a weird, clunky answer, but that's when I feel like I kind of really started doing stand-up.
Yeah.
You know, it was more hobby-esque.
And what about like were you like a performer? Like were you into like drama or that type, like when you were in school?
No.
You were
No.
Yeah.
That's why the idea of taking like any sort of an acting class or an improv class to me, I was like, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think had that been an avenue for me in school, I think taking a drama class would have been dope.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was the same for me. Like man, if you would have told me like a few years ago, like that I was in between style, like you're full, bro. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, cause I don't have a
performer
like
gene.
Yeah, nah. I was always really shy, man. I was like,
but it's that it wasn't facilitated. There was no avenue for it.
It might have been that. I mean, or I just had other anime because I was creative, so I was drawing as a kid, and I got into sports fairly early.
I can't draw. In my head, when I was little, I was always coming up with like sketches and skits, and it was always this thing that was like, I'm gonna get a camera one day, and this was back to when I was little, and I always wanted to do it, but there was no avenue for it. And like, if you were into that type of shit with the kids I grew up with, it was like, bro, you're lame, you're whack, get the fuck out of here. Oh, are you gonna be a director? You're gonna make this and that? No, we do construction and pills.
Especially Latinos.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with a lot of white kids. It was very suburban, but also, I mean, a mix, you know? But just, it was mostly like dirt bikes and pills. That's what everybody did. Most of the dudes that I grew up with in high school and junior high ended up doing construction. So it was like, there was just no outlet for any sort of an entertainment. Not, at least not with my crew, I guess.
And you say you started it like in your 20s? Like when?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started improv and sketch at probably 24-ish. And then I did the whole Groundlings program, and then really started doing stand-up at like 28, 29. Yeah.
And then, like, how did you, like, approach it when you really started taking it seriously? Like, what were some of the things that you were, like, doing? Or, if anything, you were just, like, doing the mics and writing? Like, what was your approach to?
I would always write on my lunch break. Okay. Yeah. I would take, breaks at work, and I would take my little notebook out there, and I would eat lunch, and I would word for word write out a bit. Like a monologue, you know what I mean? And then just try and memorize it. Like I remember the first time I ever got up, the first time I ever did stand up was like 7 or 8 minutes on a book show. Didn't do an open mic.
Really?
Like 8 minutes, yeah. And I remember timing it. I remember reading from my notebook and trying to time out that whole slot.
Yeah.
And so I kind of did it that way for a long time. But then I think the more you're around it, when you meet other comics and you start to get a feel for it, like you get more comfortable with, working shit out. You learn to work shit out on stage more. So you can go up on stage just with a premise and just kind of bullshit. The more comfortable you get with it. So it kind of morphed, you know?
The more you get more confidence. Yeah. And you're like, I'm in the process right now of like, I mainly do like my bits, but I'm trying to get better at doing like crowd work and like riffing. I feel like those two are like my weaknesses. So I actively try to like, all right, let me try to stretch out my like the riffing and crowd work part without interjecting my actual bits.
Yeah, I think I've always been decent with like riffing and with crowd work because I have a strong improv and sketch background. So I'm able to come up with shit on the fly, but I was also, I think, good at that because I've always just been quick and witty, but it's because I had to, because I was the little guy in the group, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to have a quick tongue because that's all you got. You know what I mean? The fat chick needs to be funny, so does the short guy.
Yeah, I was fighting, bro. I was like, nah, bro, let's throw these hands. I ain't gonna talk, bro.
I was too much of a pussy. I wasn't like the tough kid that,
I wasn't either by any means. Like, I got bullied actually for a few years from like right after I moved, because my parents split up when I was young, and then I moved with my dad when I was like 11. And then he was going to church like 3 times a week, active,
Damn.
So I was kind of like dealing with the whole church issue, and then I started kind of getting bullied at school, and I was like, Jesus, turn the other cheek, like I ain't gonna do nothing. I don't want to get in trouble in church. So I was just kind of like, it wasn't anything crazy, but like dudes would be telling me shit, or like throw a little kick at me once in a while, shit like that. Like I never got jumped or anything, but I was just like, I was literally kind of like turning the other cheek type shit. And then one day when I was like 14 or 15, like I remember just having the thought like, man, fuck all this. Like the next person that steps up is gonna get it, bro. Like fuck all that. And after that, it was some dude in high school about someone had stolen his shoes from his locker or some shit, and they told him it was me, and or his phone. It was one of the two, his shoes or his phone. And then people told him that it was me, so he came up to me, and he was like, "Yo, bro, I heard you stole my," and I was like, "Bro, you tripping, bro? Like, I didn't steal shit. I didn't even know the dude."
Yeah.
And he was like, all right then. And then like a few days later, he came up to me again, like, "Yo, bro, they keep telling me," and I was like, "Bro, fuck it, dog. Like, I didn't do shit, but let's run it, bro." And then we just got down in the locker room, and it was like quick, like we fought for maybe like a minute. And I just fucking fucked him up. And then after that, bro, my confidence was just like, hey, dog, anybody can get it. But I also grew up. I grew up with
like, and I stole your shit, motherfucker. I lied.
Nah, he just never said anything else. Nah, and I didn't. Like, it wasn't even me. I was like, bro, fuck all this shit. So after that, you couldn't tell me shit, you know? Like, but I also grew up like with I'm the only boy, but my mom has 2 sisters, and they each have a son, and we grew up really close. So I grew up fighting these dudes, like, especially the younger, like we would fight till one of us was bleeding. So I grew up fighting.
I grew up like I would fight my cousin he was 3 years younger than me, but we didn't see each other often. Other than that, it was all girls. It was all, and then a bunch of chicks in the neighborhood. There was like some boys on my street that I hung out with, but it was more camaraderie. It was less like we got to scrap.
Yeah, nah, I like grew up in like poor neighborhoods, and I was basically always in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
So like I grew up just like, and then me and him and that cousin, we grew up like living together sometimes, like, because we had like single moms, so we like literally lived together. So we like would get down.
Yeah. You guys are basically brothers.
So I feel like that, helped me, and then I was really athletic, so I was always kind of like pretty good at fighting. So once after that, I was like, anybody can get it, like, you know?
I remember I wrestled one time. We would always we would have UFC fights. Nice. And we would watch the UFC fight. We would order it, and then we'd clear the living room out, and everybody would wrestle or do like drunken jujitsu or our idea of jujitsu.
Yeah.
And I remember like having wrestling matches in the fucking living room that I didn't even probably win, but just did well at, you know? Did like well for my size. And then I'd be like, who the fuck wants it next?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you had the leverage, dude, bro. You had the...
You get that confidence, bro. Yeah. And like, especially in fighting, there's this just animalistic instinct in you that's like, it straight up is who's next now.
Yeah.
You know? That's why you see a motherfucker knock somebody out in the octagon, and they go and jump on the cage, and they start calling for the belt, dude.
Yeah.
They're on top of the world.
They're like, who's next?
Yeah.
You can get it.
You think you're invincible.
Have you ever knocked anybody out?
No, I want to.
That shit'll take your fucking head to the next level.
You've knocked people out?
I've knocked a few people out, bro. I hit a dude so hard one time that I fractured my hand. It's still fractured. You could see. Yeah, like I fractured. Normally when people break their hands from fighting, they break their pinky. Right. It's called a boxer break. I broke this bone, the bone inside.
The metatarsal.
Yeah, so
metacarpal.
It like fractured. I didn't break it. It fractured. So it's kind of like splintered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
has it healed over yet? It had to have.
It's healed, but it didn't heal right. So in order to fix it, they would have to break it and insert a rod, and I'd be in a cast for like, I can't.
Yeah, you'd be spinning in circles.
Yeah, bro. I'd be going with one hand. So you didn't come from a entertainment background?
No.
Did you have like stage fright? Did you like how? And if you did, how long did that like take to get over that? Like when you were like, well, I don't know if now some people are still afraid to get up on stage and they've been doing it for a long time. But like, did you ever have a moment when you're like, all right? Like,
I've definitely had it
on stage.
What do you mean? Like a moment where I was like fiending to get on stage?
No, like at the beginning, did you have like a fear of like just getting up, or from after you started doing it, you were like, let's do it. You're like, you didn't have
yeah. I mean, shit, dude, I'll still get nervous before certain sets now.
Oh, for sure.
But it's not a fear. It's like a performance anxiety, I guess you would call it. Like just because you don't know how anything's gonna go.
Yeah.
So there are times where my heart will definitely be racing, but once I get on stage now, the second words come out of your mouth, you're home.
Yeah.
You're in control. It's the pre-fear. But in the beginning, I definitely probably had stage fright and stand-up. I don't remember anything ever going like stage fright so bad, like being stuck there shaking. I kind of adapted to it quick, but it probably comes from the improv training, because it's such baby steps when you take those classes. Mm-hmm. It literally is like they do a pretty good job at breaking that shit down and getting that out of you. Because especially when you start at the very beginning, which is it's literal preschool and kindergarten for performers. And it was an easy thing because you see so many other people who are such dog shit. It's like when you go to an open mic and you're like, well, at least I won't be that bad. You know what I mean? If anything, if all fails, at least I won't be that bad. It's the same thing in improv and sketch. You see other people who are so horrible. Like, I remember seeing dudes viscerally shaking to the point where I watched one dude's eye twitching while he was on stage, and I was like, God damn. Yeah, I just have to not be that nervous. And improv is just relying on your wits and kind of knowing what's truly funny situationally. And so I was kind of able to do away with it through that slow process. So by the time I really got into stand-up, it was never an issue.
Yeah, because I remember having that. That was, if anything, was like holding me back was just that, like the fear of like that type of where I'm like shaking, or when I, sometimes when I get nervous, I'll like stutter a little bit. So I had the worry of like, what if I get super nervous and I start.
I stutter a little bit too, but it's it's usually when I'm working on a bit and I don't have it down yet.
Yeah, and you're kind of
figuring it out in the moment. So like I'll stutter and trip over the words a little bit, but once you get it, you know. Yeah. There's another thing too with improv, like talking about how that correlates. You literally don't know what's going to happen in improv at all. So that fear, doing that and getting used to doing that, kind of helps you with being like, well, like I've already been here before, so now I have prepared material. So stand up almost hurts worse when it's bad. You know, it's easy to accept an improv bomb because it just kind of happened. You know, it just happened on the spot. Stand up is like, I had these thoughts, I wrote them down, they sucked.
You had control before it. Yeah. That's the worst.
Yeah,
man.
It
when
sucks.
You're up there and you're like, God,
I mean, you can transition and be like, all right, well, I guess that didn't work. You know,
sucked. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys don't like the retarded pet with Down syndrome material. Sorry, you know, whatever dumb bit you're working on.
But it's cool, man. It's a cool process. I think what helped me a lot was like, I had those fears, but then I was just like, bro, I've been shot, man. Like, what am I scared of?
How much worse can it be?
Exactly. I even made like one of my first jokes that I did was something like where I was like, I had that fear, but like I've been shot. Like, what's the worst that can happen here? Like, you guys aren't gonna laugh for 5 minutes. I was like, you guys are gonna walk me out this bitch?
Yeah.
They were like, that's funny, bro. It was interesting that I once I started doing it, that shit went away almost instantly. Like I still get the nerves when I'm about to go up, but I'm not scared to I'm down. Let's get me on stage.
And it's worse going up in front of all comics than it is in front of a real crowd.
Yeah, that's the worst when you're doing bad and everybody just looking at you like, all right.
At some shitty open mic, and you know.
You paid for it too.
It's worse in front of all comics than it's ever going to be in front of a packed. It's worse to be performing for 5 comics bombing than it is a full room of
just people that are actually
civilians
there to laugh. And it's for sure a different experience.
It's easier to control the room of non-comics, I think. You know, so at least, I mean, if you're bombing in front of a full room of 100 people, that still sucks. That actually is going to suck. But at least if you're a decent enough comic, you have control of the room. So it's at least on you, whereas at an open mic full of comics, it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
Because you're at the whim of everybody else. You know, it's a different atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you grow up watching a lot of stand-up?
So I grew up watching funny movies.
Same.
Like, I was always into movies. You know, like the Ace Venturas and Robin Williams and like Eddie Murphy. Like, you know what? I've talked about this before. Like the movie that really I was like, this is a thing, was The Nutty Professor. And that scene where like they're in the club where first he's fat and then Dave Chappelle is on stage and he's making fun of him, and then he comes back skinny, and that's when I was like, this was a thing. This being on stage is a thing. It's not just like these guys are funny in movies. So then I found stand up, and then BT had Comic View at that time when I found stand up while that was running.
Yeah.
So I would watch like Comic View a lot, and then I was like, this is dope, you know. But I never had the thought of like, that's something that I could do.
Yeah.
I was always like, I enjoy this, but it was never a thought like, I can do that. Or
it seems like those people are born with that job. That's how it was for me. Like they were always destined to be that, and like they lined that shit up from the beginning. It doesn't seem like this attainable goal, or it didn't at the time.
Like for me, I grew up like around like Latin people. I'm like first generation Mexican, so like that wasn't like entertainment is not a thing for us.
Yeah,
you know, it's like hard working job. You're gonna
either got to be in a fucking banda. You got to be in a soap opera, or
you're gonna be a thief, bro, or like
or
some
you got to be Antonio
criminals.
Banderas.
Yeah. So I came to stand up like hell late. You know, it's like a year and a half for me. So I was like 37 when I.
You're a year and a half in.
30, yeah, year and a half in. So I'm like, when I started, man, I was hitting as many mics as I could, and just like I started reading comedy books. I started like watching stuff on YouTube, like just trying to just get as much as I could, and then I started hanging out after the shows with and just talking to as many other comics as I could and stuff.
Yeah, once I started doing comedy, even just like improv and sketch, before I was really even doing stand-up, I was just ingesting so much different comedy, stand-up, sketch, improv, podcasts, all of it, that I became like an encyclopedia. I remember I worked at the Laugh Factory, and this was before I did stand-up. I was working there, and who was I talking to? What were we talking about? They would just ask me like, oh, there's, what's that one joke, and who does it? And they would just like spit out the premise, and I'd be like, oh, that's Bill Burr on I Think You Should Leave. You know, I would like know the joke. And
that much? You were watching that much?
But I knew everything. I watched every special. Like, I just ingested. That's all I did. I worked a full-time job. I took improv classes, and I just ingested comedy. I went to shows constantly, was doing, you know, improv and sketch shows, and then just, I was slowly falling in love with stand-up more than I was before. And it's like, you asked me earlier, like, did I watch stand-up a lot growing up? I guess I kind of maybe did more than I realized I did, because now that I'm thinking about it, I would watch like the Comedy Central half hours a little bit here and there. So maybe I knew that I was a fan of it, or I was a fan of it without really knowing that I was a fan of stand-up.
You were aware about it without being kind of aware about it?
Yeah, like I didn't even... A fandom and that sort of thing just wasn't a thing growing up. It was like we were fans of bands.
Yeah, yeah.
We were fans of, you know... A lot of guys I grew up with were fans of dirt bike riders, and you know, I was a big hockey fan growing up. So like, you were a fan of that. I didn't know you could be like, oh, I'm a giant Tom Segura fan.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, yeah, like the YouTube and all that just changed the game. Like,
But you meet people in stand up who are these lifelong fans. Like I've had so many buddies that I've met along the way who are like, oh, I've had it in my mind since I was 8 years old. I'm going to be on SNL.
Yeah.
And
see, that's crazy. I wish I had like.
I know. I wish I had that
early like that. Yeah.
But you meet so many people who are like, I've followed Robin Williams and Jim Carrey's career to the T since I was 6 years old.
Yeah. See, I'm definitely not that. Right?
I got into John Mulaney pretty earlier when New in Town came out.
Nice.
That was a big one for me.
I think like the first time that I really was like following somebody was I saw Why You Crying, George Lopez, and I was like, "This shit,
Why you crying?
Hey, why you crying, bro?" That I like started getting into like a lot of his stuff, and then I was like, "This is
yeah."
dope, you know?
I got pretty into Russell Peters early on too.
I would catch a lot of his YouTube stuff. Like, early on.
His first few specials, dude. I was like, I'd never seen somebody talk so openly about race. Yeah. I was like, I remember
dropping the M-bomb, bro.
Russell was fucking. I mean, he's still to this day like financially one of the most successful comedians of all time, right? Because his world tours he's not as prevalent in like the new comedy scene of, you know, the Joe Rogans, Tom Seguras, those guys. But he's still like one of the biggest
overall. Yeah. Like as far as like worldwide reach. Yeah. Like he's been doing that shit for a while too. Going to like touring like, you know,
Middle East, Canada, Europe, all that shit.
Yeah.
I just remember watching him make fun of Chinese people and Indian people and being like, dude, I didn't know you can do that.
Yeah. He's great, man. His Indian accent is like on point.
You think you are cheap? I am cheap. I love that bit.
Yeah, that's in my opinion, that's one of like the funniest accents, man. Like Indian accent. Yeah, it's funny. We know dudes that are Indian and they can't. I always make fun of Abe for that.
Abe Parr?
Yeah, I'm like, bro, how are you Indian? You've been around Indian people like your whole life.
He even has a dot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he has like it's a mole that's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I don't really know that, dude. I see him at Third Wheel, but.
Yeah. No, it's a mole that he has that's like just happens to be.
Oh, that's
almost
funny,
right by.
Dude. That's how you knew you were born for it.
Yeah, he has whole bits about people calling him dot head, and I'm like, that's not really offensive because I have.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but he does his Indian accent, and I just always like, bro, how are you so bad at this, bro?
I never heard him do it.
Yes, but we had a Indian off one time when I was hosting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were like, let's see.
Were you hosting Midnight Madness?
Yeah. the other one for me was Dave Chappelle, Killing Me Softly.
Yeah, dude, I forgot about those too. I mean, I watched those when I was younger, but without knowing it, because we would quote Dave Chappelle, "It ain't chocolate, that's doo doo, baby."
Yeah.
We would quote that shit all the time.
Hey, baby.
Hey, baby, stop selling weed.
Yeah. That's a classic ass special.
So yeah, I guess it was a little bit more prevalent than I realized.
You just weren't aware that it was like stand up.
Yeah,
it was its own thing.
It was his own. Yeah.
That's a cool having that. I remember that realization. Like, oh, this is what they do.
Yeah.
You know, like this is their job. Like they're not just actors.
Yeah. And you know what? I remember my mom watching Ellen DeGeneres a lot growing up. She had those HBO specials. My mom would have that shit on. So comedy's always been like a thing for me, but different outlets. It was always kind of just like comedy in general for me instead of like a minute genre of it, stand-up, improv. I just, like TV, it was all just like, it's funny. From an early age, I knew I wanted to make people laugh. I just didn't know I didn't know it was a path, I guess.
Yeah, like, you know how I said that I realized that I was an entertainer? It was that, like, anytime that I was around my family, I was always the one telling stories and making people laugh and stuff. Yeah, but it's just because I was comfortable. So outside of that, I'm good. I
remember I would always be center circle, whether it was like my family or my girlfriend used to, at the time, would always put me like on, center stage without me knowing it. And then once I realized people were doing it, or like I played hockey growing up, teammates would do that shit too. And I didn't realize I was like killing in the circle. And then once people started, being like, all right, like dance, monkey dance, and like telling me do more, I would always be like, shut up, fuck off. I'm not fucking performing for you people.
They were like, Channing's funny.
I would get like nervous, and it would make me mad. Be like, I'm not fucking doing anything anymore. I remember being in a locker room. I had to have been like 12 or 13 and just like clowning on people left and right in the locker room. Yeah. And then I like stopped and just like kept putting on my shin guards or whatever. And then somebody was like, keep going. We're not laughing anymore. Keep going. And I was like, fuck off. I'm not a performer, dude. I'm just here to play hockey, and I just happen to be funny. It's like a machismo thing.
Yeah. Well, in us, like we have a little bit of that, like in the Latin fucking.
I guess maybe that's the Mexican influence in me,
Like, I'm not your puppet, homie.
Yeah.
But like you didn't get like a kind of like a thrill from having them on.
100%. Yeah. But I didn't like the people telling me like, yeah. All right, hey, keep going. Come on, what else you got? Partially, it was because I had probably run out of whatever,
Yeah, you were like, all right,
whatever little fucking bits I was doing on them.
That was my 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I like to ask when I have like comics, I'm like, is there any like advice that you got at the beginning that was worked well for you, or just advice in general that you would give somebody that's like just getting into the game and like starting to do?
Man. I don't remember getting any specific advice. I would tell people, though, if you're getting into it, one thing that I wish I would have known is that you got to be social. You have to be social. I remember I spent the first few years without a single friend, and that's why I was so 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and only doing it every so often because I didn't have any friends in stand-up. Mm-hmm. And once you get comfortable and you get acclimated to the social aspect of it, because for whatever reason, it plays a huge part.
Yeah,
it's the hang. You have to be around comics, get used to comics, and let comics get used to you. It's like a pack of dogs.
Yeah.
You got to smell each other's butts before they let you roll with them. So it's definitely be social, go to shows, hang out, make friends, be good. Don't take a bigger bite than you can swallow.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young comics who have come at least to this scene, and they do a lot of shit. They're very prevalent on the scene, but they're not good. And so you might be posting a lot of pictures and show flyers, but you can't back it up. And those people get talked really bad about. And I think if there's one thing that you want to have in the comedy scene, and I hope I have it, is just a good reputation.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I think you're good on that front, bro. I think everybody's like, yeah, Channing's dope as fuck.
Oh, good.
I feel like that's the general vibe that I've seen from the people around, that are around us.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah. I had somebody. Who was it? I was hanging out at the Comedy Store with like Hormos, Saul Trujillo, like a lot of the comics that are like
store guys
past, and that's one of the things that he told me too. He was like, because I was asking him like, what, I'm kind of new, like what would you, and he was like, and one of the things that helped me is like being able to just have open conversations with people. Like if you're good at just talking with people in general, like, you'll be good, you know. And he was like, I don't think you'll have a problem with that. You know, he was like, just be friendly with people, you know, have conversations.
I still struggle with that. Like I'm a pretty introverted guy until you get to know me, and then I'm overly extroverted. But like it took me a long time of hanging out at the store to get comfortable enough to just like pop in and have conversations with people.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like, at least for me, I still feel like I'm so new that sometimes I'm like, do I even kind of belong? You know, like I'll have that once in a while. I'll be like, am I even part of the group yet to be at, you know?
I think every comic goes through that. And dude, back in the day, like before the pandemic, I guess you would say, going to the store and like trying to hang like that, it was 10 times more intimidating than it is now.
Really?
Yeah. It's become a lot more of an open hang, whereas back then it was a straight up cool kids club.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see that where like some certain people hang out with certain people and a little bit in the scene still. Yeah, I haven't gone as often as I should to the comedy store just to be around. Because I'm like, I'm not gonna get time there, so I might as well just go somewhere where I'm getting time.
Sure.
But because I feel like I'm still so new that I need the time, you know, like the stage time. Or what about, is there anything that you would have liked to hear early on? Like that.
I wish somebody would have just told me earlier to dive in head first. 'Cause I didn't commit to comedy in general until mid or late 2018. But I was working like a 40, 50 plus hour a week job. Getting up, I mean, there was actually probably a 2-year period where I was working nights. I was working like 3:30 to midnight. So there was no comedy during that time. Yeah. I was just doing classes at the Groundlings, and that was my comedy outlet. And then I was getting up when I shifted my schedule around, I was getting up at 6 a.m. going to work and getting off at 4 or 5. And so that's, you can't be committed to comedy if you're doing that all day, you know? So I wish I would have just committed to being broke, being a comic, working it out, grinding, getting good and getting better, because what I ended up seeing by not being committed was a bunch of people getting opportunities around me and then getting this extreme fucking anxiety of being like, fuck, I should be out there doing that. Yeah. And that's what ultimately kind of led me to quitting. I just wish I would have done it sooner. So like I told my girlfriend this years ago, like if you're going to do comedy, you have to dive in head first. Yeah. There's no dipping your toe in and getting a feel for the water. I would say if somebody wants to get into comedy, just take your shirt off and leap, you know? For sure. That's kind of the best way to do it, because you'll immerse yourself in the world of it and not give yourself any padding. I gave myself too much padding, and I feel like I've been on the back foot the entire time.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like I actually subconsciously, I stopped painting and I stopped taking pictures because I'm a photographer. But that's what I was doing before I started doing stand-up. And I was like, I'm going to stop doing these two things and then just give it a year. Just like, just jump in. And once I was like, I like this, you know, once I did like my first, it was literally off my first mic. I have a video of me after the mic talking about like, Joe, I feel different. Like I think this is something that I was kind of like meant to do. Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna just jump in, you know. And then plus I came in late, so I'm like, I have to, like, if I want to, like, I already am behind, so I have to do as many mics as I can. Because I was doing like 4 a day, 5 a day sometimes, you know.
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
I've slowed down a little bit, like I'm getting more shows now, so I'm like combining, trying to do as many mics as I can.
I've never been the 4 or 5 mics a day guy.
Nah?
No, I 2 are good, like 1 or 2 are good for me, and then just trying to get more shows to do more time, you know, because out here, like, doing an open mic, 3 to 5 minutes, that's a bit.
Yeah,
you know,
it's hard to really get into the. Yeah.
I try to have lately just been trying to focus on getting more longer sets. Dude, I was telling a couple people I was at the Ice House, or not the Ice House, the Madhouse a couple weeks ago, and I was booked to do, I think it was a 10-minute spot. I ran the light by 7 minutes. Bro, I did 17.
You were just so into the thing, or you could see.
I missed the first light. So they lit me at, I forget when, probably 9 minutes, and I missed it. But I was doing so well. Like, I had the whole fucking room on board. Like, I try not to say this about myself, but I was crushing. Like, I was fucking murdering.
No, you know, when, like,
when
like,
you're just in the zone, and
you can feel
and
it.
time flies. Time goes by so quick, because, like, I was barely through half my set list that I had prepared when I finally saw the light, because they flashed it again at me again a few minutes later, but they kind of let me keep rolling because I was doing so well.
Yeah.
And then I was in the middle of a bit that was brand new at the time, so I didn't know the timing of it, you know? And it ended up being like 2 or 3 minutes longer than I thought it was going to be. And really, I only had about a minute left. Yeah. So I'm in the middle of this bit, and I start rushing through it, and finally I get off stage. I look at my phone. It was a 17-minute long recording, and I just started fucking apologizing to everybody.
Yeah.
The sound guy who runs the light, it's typically the sound guys who give you the light, you know?
Yeah.
He kind of shrugged me off and, you know, just gave me like a chin up, just one of those. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I missed the light. I didn't mean to run the light especially so bad, you know? Yeah. And he just kind of, you know, shoved me off like that. The host came up to me though. I was like, dude, I'm so fucking sorry. Did not mean to do that. Didn't know. He goes, bro, you're good. Yeah. You were crushing so hard, the room needed it.
Yeah.
Like, we actually really needed you to do that. So I kind of brought the room back. It was good.
Yeah. No, yeah, I feel like, I was going to say, like, if you're doing really good, they're probably like, yeah, it's cool, you know. Because if you're not, they'll let you know. They'll be like, all right, bro.
Yeah. I was so nervous. I hated it. I was talking with Chase O'Donnell about this same thing. I hated doing it so much because you never know how the club's going to react.
Yeah.
But the producers of the show, the guys who run the club, came up to me and were like, who gives a fuck? I'm cool with those guys. But still, it's still one of those things that I don't like that I did, because from a professional standpoint, I'm happy I crushed. I also got a great 17-minute tape out of it. But you hold yourself to that standard as a comic. You don't run the light.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't run the light. That's rule number 1. You don't run the light. Yeah. It happens, and there are little leniences, and luckily I found one that are forgiving of it, but it still feels bad.
No, yeah, some people take it. Some clubs or producers or the people that run, they take it serious. Like, I know that
they won't invite you back.
Yeah, I know that the Hollywood Improv, like, their book is, because they had a town hall meeting and they talked about everything. They talked about where you're at in the process when you're getting like cold opens with them, and they talked about everything. And one of the things that Rita said was like that the light, like, that's one of, because it's kind of like you're disrespecting your fellow comedians because you're taking away some of their time. So they're like, I've heard stories where they're like big comics ran the light and they were like, all right, bro, you're straight, you know? Like,
they got big names, they won't have them back.
Yeah. No, but yeah, for sure, it's a respecting. So I for sure rather get off early than risk.
I try to. As soon as I see the light, I try and wrap shit up as soon as I can. I fucked up on that one. Especially, I was on a wave, you know?
Yeah, so I've had 1 or 2 experiences where I'm like, I have like a 10-minute set, and then I do it, and it feels like it was just 3 minutes, and then you get the light. You're like, what the fuck? It's already been 10 minutes?
Because you don't realize when you're doing that well, you start fucking around with the crowd. You're looser, so your timing is actually slowed down. It's like when they say, like for a musician, if you see a band live, the timing of the song is actually faster. Because when they slow it down and record it, the progression of the song slows down. Live, it's always going to be faster. Something about, you know, when you're crushing in front of a real crowd, or, you know, you're doing well, you slow down. Because you get so much more comfortable. There's bigger laugh and applause breaks and all that shit. And it naturally, you don't realize it because you're in the moment. And all you're thinking about is getting to the next part of your bit, closing that bit out, and then getting to the next one.
And keeping the eye out for the light. It's so many things that go into you know, that whole process.
But that whole time that all this shit is going on, the clock doesn't stop. Yeah. You know, whether you've gotten to point A, point B, or point C in your bit, because that's how we as comics kind of tend to judge time, is where we are in the bit.
It usually takes this long.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when it starts to stretch out, and it's a good thing, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when your bit gets stretched out, it's a good thing because that means you're doing well.
Yeah, for sure.
But we lose focus of that. We see all the time comics go, damn, already? That the light already? Yeah. We see that all the time.
When you're like doing really good, like when you almost know that anything you say, they're just gonna eat it up. Yeah, that's
when you're just in a kill box.
Yeah.
Light a match.
Yeah,
the best.
That happened to me recently. The last time I did a cold open at the Improv, I did like it was 8 minutes, I think. Man, it felt like 2 minutes. I was like, that's it. What the fuck? Like, I didn't.
Main room or in the lab?
In the lab. I've done like 2 cold opens in the lab and 1 in the main room, and I've gotten like some of the guest spots on the show. Yeah, that's been fun. Yeah, and it's just a lot of times it's just like because I was just going, because sometimes you're there for like months and you don't get picked. I just got lucky a few times and I've
only gotten lab work there. They don't seem to want to fuck with me.
What do you mean,
like booking me?
One of the things that I kind of like is like I think they're looking for very specific things. Like there's only so much space, I feel like, so they're like, we're looking for something really specific. At least that's what I've kind of, if I've noticed anything, is that it's like, okay, like there's certain people that are getting opportunities, and it's not because necessarily they're like the funniest person, but I feel like they fit somewhere where like other people are already, like, let's say, it's not like this, but let's say like you're a type of comic. Like there might be like 20 people that are already filling that type of comic role. I feel like that's what's happening a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
And they even talked about it. She even talked about they'll have like TikTok stars or like online stars that might not be as funny, but because they bring people in, they bring in the money that allows them to give comics shows where they can bring people in. So there's like they talk about that. Like, there's
the whole city's turning into a bringer.
Yeah. Not the like the best thing when you have to like bring people in.
It sucks, but at the end of the day, it's a business. They got to get their drink sales, so whatever.
The ones that suck the most are like the bringers, where it's like a competition.
And then people. I did a couple of those in the early days.
Yeah, those
I did
suck.
one at the Haha.
One of those, when there's the guy that was like middle of the pack funny one because he had like 15 people.
They bring a bunch of people. I did one at the Haha. I think I got second place in the 2 competitions I've ever done.
Really?
So it felt good for me because I was like, well, I lost to the guy both times. I lost to the guy who brought somebody. Yeah. I might have gotten third in one of them, maybe at the Haha one, but I did that. They do Uncle Clyde's at Flappers, but they had an anti at the Flappers used to have a location in Claremont, and they had one called Auntie something. It was Uncle Clyde's and then Auntie Annabelle or whatever goofy name. And I got second place in that one. And then I was supposed to show back up to do like the finals of it. And traffic was like 2 hours long. So I didn't go.
Oh, you didn't even try to?
I got on the freeway. I got on the 5. I was like, I'm not going to fucking make it. So I called them and I left a voicemail on the on the voicemail number. Like when you call the club and it's just like the box office.
Yeah.
I was just like, hey, this is Channing Apodaca. I'm supposed to be on this show tonight. I'm not going to make it. So like some fucking box office attendant probably got that and was like, what the fuck?
What am I going to do with this shit?
Yeah.
Hey, there's still like was that early into when you were doing comedy?
It was super early.
I did, I've done 3 competitions, and the last one was like I lost. The 2 dudes, they were literally both of the dudes that won just took a lot of people because they were like middle of the pack of funny of all the people that performed. Yeah, and that sucked. I was like, what the fuck?
I think the ones that are around here are bullshit because it's just for the clubs to make money. There are literal actual like known pyramid schemes that happen in the LA comedy community.
Oh, for sure. I won one of them actually. I did that Young Baka Productions one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won. Like, it's crazy because I won.
Did he pay you right away?
Yeah, not right away. Well, he still owes me money for that shit. So I didn't take anybody though because I got mad. Like, so what happened was like they had the show, right, and it was supposed to be like on a Wednesday, I think, the final, and then like on a Sunday they were like, oh, it's gonna be on Tuesday, and then I have sisters. I have like a bunch of family here, but they all have kids. They had to like get babysitters, so I could like. It was gonna be where I couldn't take anybody, and then once I posted about that shit, a bunch of people were hitting me up like, "Bro, you ain't gonna get paid. That shit is like rigged, all this shit." So I was like, "This some bullshit." So when he hit me up and he was like, "Oh, we're moving it," I was like, this shit is, bro, what the fuck?
Don't you have to pay to get in?
Yeah, it's $40 to do it. So I was like, man, this is some bullshit. So I was like, all right, fuck this shit. I'm gonna do a 3-minute set, and then the last 2 minutes, I'm just gonna talk shit about all this shit, all the people were telling me they haven't got paid. I was like, fuck that, man. You fucking with me. So I was driving over there, right? And then I was like, I'm not gonna do it because I don't want to be like I'm just starting. I don't want to get like some kind of reputation of like this fool.
I think those like that type of shit, like those little competitions and bringers are okay when people are starting out. Everybody can see that and go, oh, he's new. He needs to do it. I have friends who are just starting out in comedy now and they're doing them. And before I say like, hey, cut that shit out, I'll let them do one or two, you know, and then you go, hey, you gotta walk away from these.
Yeah.
You're being taken advantage of, and the rest of the community sees that you're on these and is losing respect for you.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said earlier, respect of your peers and being part of the crowd is one of the most important things in stand-up.
Yeah, for sure. On my way there, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do so good that if somebody else wins, people are going to get mad. And I like to this day, this was like 5-6 months ago. That set is probably still one of the best sets that I've ever done, where every joke was just hitting.
Because you went in with a fire.
And I was on point, like everyone. I was like getting them. And I took one person and I ended up winning that shit.
Damn.
But yeah, he paid me like a week. He gave me like $500 like a week later, and then
I've heard about how he does that shit. Like he takes the money, and then you think that you're gonna get whoever the winner is gets paid that night, and then he pays. Like, oh, I'll give you 150 here, 300 the next.
It's a whole like
because he's spending it.
I figured out what he's doing is what he'll do is like he'll give you a portion of it and then he'll have you like host this and I'll give you the 100. So you're basically working for that money that you should be getting anyways. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna get my money one way or another. Whether it is talking about it or making a joke, because I've done jokes about it and there's enough people know about it that they're like that shit is funny, bro. I'm like I'll say something like, I still haven't got paid. Shout out Young Baka Productions, you know? I'm like, fuck it. Bro, not that long ago, Abe was hosting, and I was going to go and just trash that shit. But when I got there, like, I got there late. So when I got there, they were like, oh, we ran out of time. They're kicking us out. But, like, there was a night that I was just like, I'm just going to be like, hey, the last time I was on this stage, I won this competition.
Where was it?
At Sunset Rooftop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like...
I still get texts from him asking me to do that show.
See, he don't text me no more.
I don't even fucking know him, though.
Yeah.
I think I did a show that was hosted by this dude, Sizzle. Did you ever meet Sizzle?
Sizzle.
He's like this Korean U.S. Marine veteran / comic / rapper. And he was hosting a show. He asked me to be on it. And so I said, sure. It was like me and Kurt Steinmiller showed up. Connor Hengsleben was on it. I think Cole Alexander was probably on it. Like Rick Winston, all these guys. And I don't know if you know those guys, but we all agreed to do it. And it turned out that I think Baca was co-producing it with Sizzle. And so he got everybody's information through that shit. And now he'll still text me. And I usually ignore it or...
Yeah. Well, no, I would get those at the beginning all the time when I was like, I don't know, because I started hearing like, that shit is shady, bro. Don't even. Yeah. And I would get them all the time, but haven't got shit since. You know,
that's funny.
It's funny how he'd be like, oh, I thought we were cool.
I've turned him down. Like I've had other comics hit me up and be like, yo, I'm hosting tonight. I can get you 8 minutes. I'm like, I'm down. Where at? Oh, it's at the Sunset Rooftop. And I go, oh fuck, is that a Baca?
Yeah.
And they're like, literally, somebody went, unfortunately. And I went, I'm good, bro. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it.
The only reason those are good when you're new is because you're getting time. That's the only thing. You're not paying for it and you're getting time. But other than that, man, that shit is just fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, a show, maybe. Like, I would never fucking pay him to do a competition or any of that shit. But if he wants to throw like 10 minutes on just a showcase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, those are worth it because you're getting time, you know, especially out here. But yeah, that's a whole fucking...
I don't understand that type of shit. There's a couple different people who have done that type of thing where they're just producers. They're not even comics.
Yeah.
I've actually known people who aren't shady. Like back in the day, there was Sarah Mello. I don't know if you ever seen Mello Comedic. She used to run shows at the store and kind of at the Improv. And then my friend Ashley Bird used to do a show called Mana at the store. Not comics, but they just want to produce shows. It's always been interesting to me.
And they would give them shows? That's crazy.
Yeah, they would give them shows. They would literally just book the lineup, put the show on.
They probably just had some kind of following or something. They could just put asses in seats.
Maybe that sick Sarah Mello, she used to get like Chappelle all the time.
Well, if you're getting Chappelle,
dude,
right?
I know, but like that's crazy, right? It's like some people just want to be producers, and that's dope.
I mean, yeah,
it's
like
just
you get
it's
to
such a
see,
foreign idea to us.
You get to see, like you get the opportunity to see someone's like progression.
Yeah,
That's
you know who does that is Cody Ellis. Cody Ellis.
Yeah.
Is that how do you say his last name?
Yeah,
The Sunday Punchline dude.
Yeah. Great show. It's
a dope show. He's not a comic, and now he's doing. I kind of saw him and was like, oh fuck you. I haven't seen one of you guys in a minute, and he's nothing like Baca or anything like that. He's more like Sarah Mello and Ashley Bird, just a straight up good producer.
Have you heard of any like competitions that are not like that here, like that are like legit? Well, you were saying like the one at the Flappers.
Flappers people still do. It's called Uncle Clyde's. I haven't done it in a long time, but
it's how that like the crowd votes, or how does that? They have judges.
I think it's a crowd vote if I remember. I'm pretty sure, yeah. But they actually give you money.
They actually pay.
Yeah, I mean it's Flappers, so that already has its own reputation as being just a unique, interesting club in and of itself. And it's very goofy. That competition is filled with a bunch of newbies, but like if you wanted to win a quick $500 or whatever they're giving out, you could probably go there and just run it. You know who I think hosted is Peter Murphy.
Yeah, I actually just asked him about it because I was like, I'll probably run that shit if I won the first two competitions that I did. I won that Baca one, and then they have another one at the Berkshire House. Jeremy Gumbeezy Love, he has his he does a open mic there on Wednesday sometimes, and he produces shows at the Lab at the Improv. He's been selling out the Lab for like 15 or 16 shows already. So what he does is like he has competitions, and if you win it, you get a spot on his show at the Lab. So that's how I got my first spot at the Hollywood Improv.
Oh, nice.
His show, I won that.
Nice.
And it's cool. That was a crowd vote, but it was like crowd vote and they had judges.
I think there's a couple competitions like nationally that are still good. Like I know the San Francisco comedy competition still holds value. Okay. And then like for what it's worth, there's this thing called the World Series of Comedy, which I think does get a bad rep. But at least with that, because they do it in so many different locations, the benefit of it is that you get up in front of all these different club bookers. Like Mike Eshak did that, and he sings praises about that competition because he did so many what they call satellites, just different pop-ups of the competition in different areas. Yeah. And the bookers see you at all those different clubs, and then that's how he books road work. Nice. Is he goes, well, when can I come back? They go, oh, you won or you got second or third. We really liked you. And he's like, all right, give me some dates.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I was like, when I did that first competition, I was like, a bunch of people had told me like, don't do it, all this shit. But I was like, yo, even if I don't get the money, bro, if I could get to say that I won a competition, especially it was early on when I was I was like, it might be worth it, you know.
100%.
You have two podcasts, and you have a F1 podcast. Like, how did you? Because I recently got into F1 because of the Drive to Survive series.
Yeah.
Like,
Drive to Survive is making F1 blow up in the States. How do we what?
Like, how did you like? Because you say you a few years. You say you've been into that.
Yeah, I've been in F1 for like 3 or 4 years now.
What's like a interesting perspective that you could give us on, because you guys do like breakdowns, right? And you talk about the races. Like, what's a interesting perspective that you bring to it as like a comic, maybe, or as like?
I mean, I'm trying to get comfortable with blending comedy and sports coverage, because that's what basically the podcast is. It's basically sports radio, right? We're breaking down and doing predictions of a sport. I'm trying to bring comedy to it, so we tend to make fun of things situationally amongst the drivers, funny situations, and then also just like because they're in different countries at every single race, we kind of will make fun of like the economics or like the social situations happening in that country. Yeah. Like we were breaking down the British Grand Prix, which I don't know when this is coming out, but it's happening this Sunday as of when we're recording this. The British Grand Prix is in 2 days from now. And so I was making fun of Prince Andrew and how, he was caught up in molestation charges. And I made a joke like, maybe if Lewis Hamilton or so-and-so wins, he'll finally have a reason to sweat because he was on radio. Have you heard about that? He got caught on Epstein's Island, Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
And one of the descriptions of him from one of the little girls that they were molesting was, this guy was sweating so much. And Prince Andrew said, oh, well, that couldn't be me because I don't sweat. So I was just fucking joking around, being like, hey, maybe if one of the Brits wins this weekend, it'll give Prince Andrew a reason to sweat. So I'm trying to do that, but I got into it because somebody again had to like convince me to do it. They had, same with like comedy, is somebody had to be like, look, you're already drinking beers and talking about F1. You love to do it. Why not stick cameras and microphones in your face?
Yeah. Well, because man, it's so like political and they like it's so serious. I was just thinking, like adding some kind of like comedic thing to would be interesting.
We're still trying to fine tune it and find our voice within it. We're new to it. We're half a season of F1 into it, but it's fun, dude. I got obsessed quick. I've always liked race cars and racing. I just never liked NASCAR. It took me finding F1 to be like, fuck yeah, this I can get down with. Like, I always wanted a go-kart when I was little. I love open-wheel road racing. And so once it took me finding F1, I was like, oh, shit. And then I get autistic about shit, bro. Like, once I get into something, I'm not autistic, I don't think, but I have to know everything about it. And so once I got to know all the little minutiae of it and the facts and all the motherfucking money that goes into it and the science, like it, the phrase, it's not rocket science? F1 actually is. It's actual rocket science.
Yeah, they have
picture an airplane. It's the mirror image of that. Whereas an airplane uses its speed and its trajectory and its torque to lift off. An F1 car is doing the opposite. And an airplane is creating uplift or upforce. An F1 car is creating downforce. If it didn't have that, it would take off like an airplane.
Yeah.
So you said, like, what's an interesting thing about it? I mean, my perception of F1 is, blending it with comedy. But two things I always tell people to get them into F1 that are always exciting for me. Like, you can tell I get all perked up and I get nerded out when I start talking about it. One thing that's so interesting to me, an F1 car creates so much downforce. It generates so much downforce just through the aerodynamic design of it at just 80 miles an hour. It's creating so much downforce, meaning the aerodynamic design is forcing wind to press down hard on the car, hard enough that 80 miles an hour, if it were to go through a tunnel and go up to the top, it would stick to the roof of that tunnel because the downforce that it's creating is keeping it stuck there. Just 80 miles an hour. Yeah. That's freeway speed. Yeah. That, and I'm also really fascinated with the way F1 works because they're like astronauts. Like, they are such a rare person. I've seen an F1 driver one time in person, outside of like seeing them from afar at a race. I saw Nicholas Latifi in the terminal at Austin Bergstrom Airport in Texas. He was in the fucking terminal. That's like seeing a unicorn. Because think about every other professional sport. Football. There are almost 2,000 active NFL players in the NFL at one time. Yeah. And like, I wouldn't be shocked if I found out there was close to 1 million retired football players. Yeah. Baseball, there's about 1,700 active players. Soccer, basketball, and hockey, about 14 active NHLers, NBAers, soccer players. You know how many F1 drivers there are in the world?
Active or not, like just in general?
How many drivers there are in F1? So there are 1,900, 2,000 NFLers, 1,700 MLBers, 1,400 NHLers. You know how many F1 drivers there are? 20. 20 guys who are chosen, who are good enough, and who also have the scratch to get them where they need to be. Yeah. There are 20, and they're the top tier. Like, it's just, it's sexy, man. Yeah. 20 of the best guys battling it out. See, you shouldn't have got me started. I got goosebumps. When that fucking theme song comes on before a race, bump, bump, bump. Yeah. I'm fucking dancing around.
Yeah. No, that's because I was thinking like
right here, dog.
That's the first thing when you opened the door, I was like, he got the McLaren. Yeah. So you have your podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Into the Chicane. Into the Chicane, a Formula One podcast.
Yeah. And then what was your second podcast?
I do a storytelling podcast called All Ears. It's called All Ears with Channing Apodaca. It's one person comes on. My last guest is Danny Alvarez right here. One person comes on, tells a personal story that they're involved in, start to finish.
Yeah, we just did that. And where can people find you, like social media and that type?
You can find me on Instagram at the other Channing. I think my Twitter, which I'm really not active on, is just other Channing. And then my YouTube channel, you just search Channing Apodaca. That's got stand-up clips. The podcast is on there, all that shit. And then Into the Chicane, you can find that on YouTube also.
Any big shows, stand-up shows you have in the next like 2 to 3 weeks?
I'd have to look at my dates. I think I got the Haha Cafe on July 17th, or is that the 14th? July 17th, and then I have the Fox and the Hounds in Studio City. I don't have that date in here. I want to say that's Friday the 14th, and then I have Flight Sports Bar in El Segundo on July 25th.
For sure. You heard it. If you guys want to catch him doing this thing live, check out the show. I'm sure you posted up on your Instagram and that let people know. Yeah. Anything else you want to close with before you get off? Anything you want
to? Don't get into comedy. We're tapped. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot. You see a lot of new faces in the game. For sure. Well, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Thanks for letting me use the spot.
Of course.
And, thanks for having me on yours. And
yes, sir.
We out.
Peace.
Pacing in my studio, just coming up with dapper bars to spit in crucial situations when I play the rapper's part. Heard I got a denim heart and lyricism in my jeans. Cut a track down, leave it bald head like Mr. Clean. Spit it mean, a record fiend. I school you niggas, call me Dean. I'm always specious, never seen. Stay on the chase for minty green. It's local how these niggas say they ballin', but they broke though.